If you've watched Shapu's first drive review of the BYD Atto 3, you probably know everything there is to know about it. If you haven't checked that out, the link is right here. But today is about going into details. How does the Atto 3 feel to drive in the city? How does it feel out on the highway? How does the ADAS work? And of course, what all is packed in that fancy rotating screen. But the big one is of course the real world range. And all that is what we're going to find out today. So let's not waste time. Let's get straight to it. We started off the highway stint with 98% charge and a range of 474 kilometers on the lovely East Coast road that connects the busy city of Chennai to Mahabalipuram. Alright, so how does the Atto 3 feel out on the highway? Well, pretty much like every other EV, it's quiet, it's hushed, so you hear pretty much everything. You hear the wind noise buffeting over the outside mirrors, you hear a bit of road noise as well. Now, wrapped around the 18-inch wheels are Atlas Batman tires. If you're into superheroes, that's a bit of a flex. But in terms of performance, they are not too bad because not a lot of road noise that comes through. So they do offer a good amount of insulation and they do offer a good amount of grip as well. Because the 204 horsepower motor here is quite nice. It's quite linear. And as Shapu said in his review, there isn't a lot of performance. Even in sport mode, the car doesn't really lunge ahead like every typical EV. Yes, you have that instant acceleration, but it is a lot more linear. The 200 horsepower is transferred to the front wheels via a single-speed transmission, and with the sport mode engaged, it will do 0 to 100 kph in 7.3 seconds. However, out on the highway, what is a bit more useful are the safety features, especially ADAS. And ADAS works best on highways because our national highways are maintained relatively better than our city roads. In that sense, they are well marked. You have speed signs everywhere. You have boards and markings in all the right places. But they can be a bit too intrusive if you are too relaxed with the car. So you do have to alter your usual driving style because the chimes keep on coming in as soon as you sort of veer away and you get close to the lane markings. That is basically the car trying to keep you between the lanes. It's a safety feature. It's very good, but it does take a bit of getting used to. The other bit is automatic braking. That means you can't really get too close to the car ahead. Again, a very useful feature in our country where people drive absolutely tailing the car ahead. So basically what automatic braking does is it detects the car that has slowed down in front of you and it applies the brakes. And yes, that can come as a bit of a surprise if you are not careful. You really need to maintain your distance, not make any sudden movements, and definitely no lane cutting, especially when you have cars around you. What's also nice is adaptive cruise control. It's not the newest feature, we've seen it before, but it works well on this car as well. So you basically lock onto the car in front of you, the car speeds up, you speed up, that car slows down, you slow down. And then the one very useful feature is blind spot monitors, and that means the cars that are in your blind spot that you can't really see in your ORVMs, you have a bit of a detector for that, and that basically warns you that there is a car that you cannot see in your mirror, so just be a bit careful. But on the highways, how is the regen like? Now out on the highways, you can be a bit lenient in terms of regen. The Atto 3 only gets two modes between standard and high. High is I think best used for city. If you're out on highways, you don't have to have it in high, which means you don't get that sudden braking. And of course, when you press hard on the brakes, you get the full amount of regen on offer. So that's a nice thing. It isn't really locked to a particular level. And that I think helps you gain that crucial extra kilometers. Now the Atto 3 is a pretty packed car overall, but one feature I would have liked, especially on long highway journeys, is ventilated seats, because on a hot day, they really can make a difference. Now the seat comfort is quite nice. They are very, very supportive and they really feel good. You know, they feel almost sporty and very sports car like. They're one piece, so it's really nice. However, all fancy equipment aside, it is the new E-Platform 3.0 that enhances the Atto 3 in terms of design, packaging and technology. But of course, underneath, the star is the Blade battery that is one of the safest out there and extremely efficient too. And just speaking a bit more on the Blade battery, they really have made some serious advances in terms of the tech and in terms of thermal management more than anything else, because the thermal efficiency of this battery is very, very good, and that is what allows it to have a long range of almost 500 kilometers. Now we started with 98% and the range then was 474. If I push the car hard now and then charge it again to 100%, it won't really show 474, it will show a bit less. So yes, it depends on your driving style, and the car basically collects data, it collects your throttle input, it connects the performance, and it gives you an estimate based on that. But how is it in the city chaos? And is ADAS just as good? Alright, we are in the city in proper peak hour traffic. In any metro city, this is the case pretty much all the time. And well, the BYD Atto 3 feels like a normal car. In fact, even though BYD says it is an SUV, it feels like a normal hatchback. It's nice and compact, it's just the right size, and it also sort of shrinks around you. Also, what's very good is the visibility on offer. You have the dash that is set nice and low, so you can see out very clearly and very easily, and it is very easy to drive as well. The steering is light and breezy. Of course, you can change the modes in that. You can get a bit more feel out of the steering. But even though the modes do change a bit, you don't really feel that much. Overall, the steering is quite light and breezy to use. Now in the city, you don't really need 204 horsepower. But this thing is pretty quick, especially when it comes to making small gaps and off-the-line response. Yes, it doesn't have that EV nature where it sort of hits your head back and it gives you that jerky reaction. The other thing, of course, is the ADAS. And on the highways where the roads are well marked, it is not an issue. But in the city where the roads aren't really well marked, the traffic isn't as smooth flowing or even as mannerful, things get a bit out of hand sometimes, because it does intrude quite a bit in your usual driving cycle, and you have to be quite wary of the situation around you. Because even though the blind spot monitor is there, you have the automatic braking front and rear, and it obviously has the adaptive cruise control, which is more for the highway. Basically, the point is you can't really rely completely on them because of how the traffic moves around in India. But it's not really the most disciplined way, and what that results is people cutting in constantly, and the chimes of the warnings are just constantly on. Regen in the city is only decent, but switching between the modes doesn't have a big difference. Now honestly, they don't do a lot in the sense they don't differ as much. On high, you would expect a bit more in the sense of braking and a bit more regenerative force, but that's not the case, sadly. A full day of driving with the aircon on, switching between the modes from sport on some nice stretches, normal on the boring long highways, and eco in city traffic, the real-world range achieved was rather impressive. 205 kilometers of mixed driving took just 58% of charge, with an efficiency of 5.84 kilometers per kilowatt hour. As per this, the real-world number is easily around 350 kilometers, and if driven sedately, you can get it above the 400 kilometer mark as well. Now, of course, Shapur has gone through with the whole interior and the features and even the exterior design, so I'm not going to delve too much into that. But I will say this, it does stand out in a sea of cars. It does look quite different, quite futuristic, and it has that EV appeal to it as well. It's not traditional in the most EV sense. It looks a lot car-like, but yes, it does have that premiumness, and it does look a bit expensive on the outside. The drag coefficient of just 0.21 makes it run through the air more efficiently. The long wheelbase aids better room on the inside, and the short overhangs offer the right proportions as well. Inside, of course, it is as wacky as it can get. You have this lovely touchscreen, which is quite slick and very easy to use. And of course, the party trick is that it can rotate 90 degrees as well. But what's also cool is the amount of features packed in, right from the air cleanser to the battery modes, the audio settings, the camera with multiple angles, and also an invisible mode that makes light work of tight spaces, and a host of other features. Speaking of which, BYD also offers a 3 kilowatt vehicle to load feature as an accessory, which can power appliances like coffee machines or electric kettles using the car's power. Then you have the MID, which honestly I'm not a big fan of, because I think there's too much crammed in here. It sort of, takes a while before you notice certain things, and it could have been slightly easier to read. That said, everything you'd need to know right from the regen level to the range and even TPMS is on display here. Now, one interesting thing about the BYD is that you also can modulate the brake feel and the brake effort, and that is something that really comes in handy, especially in the city, because on EVs, braking is usually not as progressive as on ICE cars, but on this you don't have that. You have a nice progressive brake pedal. The effort is quite good and the bite is nice and strong as well. Recharging options are straightforward with the Atto 3. 80 kilowatt DC fast charger takes 0 to 80% in 50 minutes. 7 kilowatt AC charger takes 0 to 100% in 9.5 hours to 10 hours. As impressive as the Atto 3 is, at 33.9 lakh rupees, it is expensive. Its rivals deliver almost same amount of electric car for considerably less, and that could limit its appeal. Still, if you like its sense of individual style, smooth, refined driving manners, and standing out from a crowd, the BYD Atto 3 just might be the right option.